I think that the quality is in the premise of the show, it's in the characters, how relatable the content is.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Kids Media Club podcast. I'm Andy Williams.
Hello, I'm Jo Redfern, and Emily, please tell us about our guest today.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Emily Horgan, and we are here with Liz Gonzalez. Liz Gonzalez is a YouTube expert. She is the co-creator of Little Angel, which is an IP that many people will have heard of. And she's a YouTube specialist. She grows IP on YouTube, and she's working on a couple of different projects at the moment that she's going to tell us about. So Liz, it's really great to have you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's really exciting to join this forum. So thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, it's really great to have you, Liz. We met at Kids Screen in San Diego earlier this year, where we were found to be furiously agreeing with each other in a corner of a restaurant at one stage. And so it's been exciting. It's exciting to have you on here. So the co-creator of Little Angel. Little Angel is a nursery rhyme IP that was bought by Moonbug, acquired by Moonbug a few years ago. And has been seen. I can see in my Netflix data, it does really good performance on Netflix, as well as having a solid YouTube footprint. So tell us a little bit about like the origin story of Little Angel. Where I'm excited to know where it came from.
Yeah, so I think it was around 2016 that I joined this company in Montreal. So it's actually originated in Montreal, Canada. So it was Balnet, the company's called, it's content distribution company. So
Mhm.
I joined the team of YouTube, and basically they had, channels in different verticals. So they had one kids channel. And because of my background, I was an executive producer at an animation studio in Montreal. So I was brought on board to, kind of like lead that, because it was the first time that they were actually working with animation and create a pipeline and stuff like that. Because before that, it was the rest of the channels were just less content, right? So it was just editorial content that never really touched production. And so I was brought into the team, and I remember very vividly leaving that company. So the first chat that we had, and I just asked myself, I was like, is that a real job, like YouTube? Because back then it was like, what is that? I was just very curious about it. And I'm like, yeah, this sounds like fun, but okay, fine. I'm going to be a YouTuber apparently. And so it started to, I had access to a musician, fantastic musician, by the way,
Yeah.
Animation team, a small animation team in house. And so it was basically just trying to create content. Really, it didn't matter back then. It was just consistency, right? Like, being able to like output content regularly for the platform, because that's what they were really specialized in, distribution. So we really tried everything. We tried animals. We tried working with different artists. Just the one common denominator was the musicians. So I think that most of the work was going into that, ensuring that the songs were of quality and they were fantastic. And so the animation really didn't matter back then. So we started to create anything. We went into the animals. We created, inspired obviously by Baby Shark. And because at that time it was like around 2015, 2016 that it was exploding. So I was really just looking at Ping Fong and Baby Bus and all of these other channels. So just kind of like, just playing the game. And so we started to notice that some things were kind of like working. So certain characters, every time we had like a little monkey, the video will just like go crazy, explode. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So it was also a way for us to test and really understand how to read the data and what it was for us in that channel, because every other channel had data, similar data, but it was completely different, the way you interpret it. So it was also kind of like a process for us to understand, okay, so what does that mean, right? And so at the same time, I was really obsessed over every other channel at that point. And I remember ABC Kids TV then, Coco Melon, they were also going through, the animals and introducing JJ, the humans, and they were having, kind of like mixed animals, humans. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So we started to create that. At the beginning, we were just 2D. And so we were just, okay, let's see, how the humans do because we don't have an IP really, so we just try everything. And the humans really work. So the first kids created human characters created were Jack and Jill. No thought for behind that, like it was just Jack and Jill, and now Jill is one of the strongest characters in the series. And then it was working well, and then at some point we had to create Are You Sleeping Brother John, the song, the nursery rhyme. So we had to create a baby, and he became Baby John. And very simple, no real development behind. I would love to say that I spent months behind just trying to develop it, but I would be lying. And so it was just basically trying to understand the platform, and those videos worked really, really well. So we kind of like pivoted and say, okay, human characters work really well. And so we started to create more of that while keeping some animals. And then we did the jump to 3D.
Mm.
So we
And-
took these characters into 3D.
And at what point, because your journey is similar in a way to many other creators in that testing and learning is really the way to hone your skill.
Testing by doing, like forget
Yeah.
development, like just getting to
On-
doing, yeah.
At what point did you realize that what you were making was an IP? Or was it a conscious decision, or did you have that epiphany where you were like, actually, we've created an IP here?
I think it was only after 1 year of us creating content in 3D with like the characters in 3D, where we started to see that some of the original content that we created outside of the nursery rhymes was actually taking off. It was kind of like we were creating almost trends. And so that's when we realized, okay, we have something here. We have like a strong following in an audience. And I think that's when we started to like realize how big this was and how loved Baby John was really. Back then it was like all about the huge eyes. We actually had to reduce the size eventually because it was just too much. But it was just like kids really, really liked the character and how he was behaving. And, my goal was to really show the be relatable, to parents. Like, hey, parents, we understand you. And Baby John really acting like a little baby at home. Babies get fussy and get cranky, and we were kind of like just showing that. So it was kind of like real life stories put into like little snippets of videos and just for entertainment. But I think it was consciously we were making the content to make sure that the parents will also understand that and we wanted to be kind of like the parents toolbox, or be used by teachers at schools to be for circle time. Okay, let's sing a song, or so it was that kind of intention behind it. So at some point when we realized how effective or efficient that was, we just kind of like hone into that and just continue to do that.
Amazing. And did that take some adjustment for the team, for the creative team, to kind of really embrace that data-driven, audience-led form of development? Because it's such a contrast to how programs and IP is traditionally developed.
Oh, it was completely the opposite. We were just not following. We were not playing that game. We were playing our game, and we were very lean. The team was very small, and we were just really, we were not even like working with writers, like real writers, from the guild or with agents. We were just very dynamic in that sense. So I work with brilliant people, but maybe that, who were not known to the traditional media. And so I found really magic there, some of the best minds. They were just, not following that game, and they were more flexible, and they were more open, and they were just, if something is not working, they had no problem pivoting and really just, okay, that didn't work. Okay, let's stay away from that and just do this. Fine, So it was very dynamic. So I think it was obviously we were more back then. YouTube was giving you data more accurately and real time. Like you will know after 7 days if a video was working or not. Now you need 30 days or more. But back then it was very reactive. Like all the decisions that we were making creatively as well, where we were incredibly reactive, right? So we needed a team that was able to navigate those with us. So I think not having your typical structure for development helped us a lot to be able to navigate that quickly.
I mean, it's so impressive how nimble and dynamic that form of production is. Yeah, and it's such a contrast to the way people would develop IP within that kind of TV landscape that it's interesting to kind of look back on that.
Yeah, fun fact, when we were acquired by Moonbug and they asked us where was the Bible, I didn't have a Bible. I had guidelines. I had a lot of documentation, but we didn't have a Bible, and we didn't have a Bible for a reason. We just didn't want to be, narrowed down into this format, because if we needed to drop Baby John and focus on animals again, we would do, So I think that it was I think that was really great for distribution, and for as a strategy, it was very, very strong to get the content out there. I don't think it was the best strategy to build an IP. But I think that because of Moonbug, after the acquisition, that's exactly what we did. And my job went into developing that, really. Like, okay, we already have the audience. They love the show. There's no specific or, world that, the kids are like expecting like this, the same kind of formula over and over, but they do know what they get from Little Angel, right? So I think that it was um it was just that work that I had to do when I arrived at Moonbook, just to kind of like start making sense of all that world that was just in my head, and just kind of like begin to give it a form. But I think because they were more, obviously focused on the IP itself and building it so further.
Makes sense. And talk to me more about the music, because you said at the start there that the music became really, really key. So like keeping that quality, and obviously nursery rhymes becoming so much a part of the DNA of the show.
Yeah. So the audience, the audience that we were, targeting is it was 1 to 3 years old, right? So they, even they just can't follow stories. They're very, very young. And it's also for the parents. What the parents are going through, they don't want to, put the kids to watch for hours a series that they want to understand. They cannot even sit, s- straight for more than 10 minutes, at a time, until they're 3. And so I think that it was also, again, going back to that simplicity. Super Simple Songs did it. They started in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, or probably before that. So it just really, you know, paved the way for creators as well too, right? So it's like where parents, Super Simple Songs was a place where parents just went for music content, right? So they just wanted to have that one-on-one experience with their kid. They want to teach them how to, sing, or sing to them Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and so they will find it right away. So I feel it was just kind of like a reflex from parents at that time, just to, okay, I'm gonna, sing with my son, or my daughter, Wheels in the Bus. So the first thing is like, okay, go to YouTube, right? So I think it was just that need. It was a niche, needs that weren't addressed by traditional media at that time, that just kind of like opened this whole space of nursery rhymes. And I feel that that was the one thing. It was kind of, I think that the show premise was not even Little Angel or Baby John. It was the music. We really wanted to create great music for kids. So I think that's why at the beginning, the animation, the characters really didn't matter, because really the focus was around the music, because it was just kind of like the entry point, right? For entertainment, for parents, for teachers at circle time, or bedtime stories, or bedtime songs as well. Just kind of like try to identify those moments in, the daily lives of parents with toddlers, and just try to feed them with, that type of content, so that they can have those moments with their at home with their kids.
And tell us a little bit about when you noticed that this landscape was opening up. You know, clearly super simple songs and yourselves had done a really great job. What that does is attracts attention of other people thinking, okay, I'm going to get into this space. When did you realize that nursery rhyme content on YouTube was this explosion waiting to happen?
Well, definitely Baby Shark did it for us. Thank you. So it was that phenomenon was the first time that something exploded, a song, aside from maybe Despacito or any other song. For kids, it was the first time that something like that exploded. And so after that, seeing the growth, the constant growth of Coco Melon as well, ABC Kids TV again, it was something like, it was like, wow, okay, there's definitely something there. And I think it was really when Coco Melon started to grow that we saw the huge opportunity. And in parallel, at the same time, we were seeing that some of our songs, the original songs, we were actually creating trends. What's under my bed, or hot or cold. These are all original songs. And while we did very well on some nursery rhymes, really we started to notice that Four Little Angel original content was actually very like rewarded, right? Because we didn't have a lot of authority on other songs, and there was already a lot of competition for the classic nursery rhymes. So I think it was a whole space that just kind of like started to open up, but at the same time, it was all of the channels, the biggest channels that we see now, they were all realizing the same thing. So it was a very competitive landscape. So originality is what, for us anyway, we noticed that was something that the audience liked, and the platform rewarded us with.
Yeah. And like, because there would be a perception in the industry, right, that like, nursery rhyme content does not equal quality. I mean, I'm not sure you'd share that point of view, but I love what you spoke about there about like, listen, this is content for kids of a certain age, and their parents, just to have something to help with along the way, right? Like, and you know, we've all been brought up on nursery rhymes for centuries, I would say. This is not a new format. It's not a new phenomenon. It's new that it's being done. It's new in the last, decade, 15 years that it's being done on YouTube, but it's something that is quite native to that age group growing up. Um, what's your view on that take? Maybe that this isn't quality. There's a question on the quality of this type of content.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite questions, because I hear that all the time. I have a lot of friends in the industry, and I know that some companies or some production companies, they don't they have been, I'm not sure the word is underestimating, but maybe it is, the power, the influence of these channels. And yes, it is true. For many years, YouTube had really bad PR, because there was a lot of different channels that were there just for the view, for the click, right? So they were not really engaged with anything else other than just getting the views and monetizing. Back then, it was also more interesting, the monetization, right, than that what we see now. But I think it's also the for the creators that were engaged, and we had that intention to create quality content, but at a certain level, right? You still have to be nimble. You still have to produce enough content to be able to grow. And so you can't really afford even to no pipeline can afford super high quality on this platform. It is a reality, but it's also not needed, right? I think that the quality is in the premise of the show. It's in the characters, how relatable the content is. It's valuable. It has like strong takeaways. Like if your kid can actually like count of five, well, there's a lesson. There's a takeaway there. It's accessible. Sorry, to everyone, because it's a free platform as well. And there's a lot of things that make this content very appealing, but it's also, the reality is that not every creator is committed to provide these values. But there are some creators, and I would say the creators that are are really engaged. And I think that we even go beyond, what just the creative director or, the creative producer says that a 2-year-old kid wants. It's what the platform is telling us that they want. So it's really I don't know. It's just a mentality that is, I feel that is still there, and I feel that maybe the old traditional broadcast media things that they have to spend a lot of money on content for YouTube. I think that quality comes in many different shapes and forms and colors, and I think that the quality is in the ideas, in the content, and content is king in the end. But where do you put the value? That's really also the question, right?
I wonder as well, do you think that some of the industry perception that might be more critical is, do you think part of that is informed by maybe, I don't know, a sense of fear, really, that the things that they kind of value and that would like to be measured are different from what the audience values and measures?
I don't know if it's fear. I think what we don't know causes some sort of like maybe some degree of fear because they don't know how to do it, right? So I think now I think that there's more understanding um, on how YouTube content is made. I still feel that a lot of people don't think that is right. It's just because for them it just doesn't feel right that a show cannot be created from a Bible, and it has to be created through the data. So it's not anymore the director deciding what a 2-year-old likes. It's the actual content telling. So I don't know if it's fear, but I feel that they just need to understand that it is completely reversed, right? Like you present the content, you test the audience, you find the audience, and they'll tell you what you can make.
What Nursery Rhymes did on YouTube for me was service a need that wasn't being serviced by broadcast and TV channels and creators and broadcasters there. And I remember when my nephew, who is 22 now, when we started singing nursery rhymes. I don't remember nursery rhymes from when I was a kid. I had to go back to my mom or buy a book that told me what the nursery rhymes were to sing to my nephew. And then along comes YouTube, and it almost, in a way, helps pass down what nursery rhymes have been for generations, and services a need that previously had been, serviced by either your granny told you what nursery rhymes you needed to know, or you have to go and buy a book to learn them. And I think that's really interesting, looking back at how it came along and serviced a need, and that was really important. And that, when I look back on YouTube, whether people are sniffy in their perceptions or right or wrong, actually it serviced a really big need and has done for the last 20 years.
And I think it's also that good thing about quality that you touched on, that you know what I mean? Like, quality can take many shapes or forms, and ultimately on a platform like YouTube, it's the audience deciding if the thing has quality. And like, sometimes quality is in simplicity, right? It doesn't, and I think there becomes this question of, is it quality? Is it not quality? If is it quality if it's expensive to make? It's not necessarily like the benchmark. Just because it's expensive to make doesn't make it good, doesn't make it connect with the audience. And sometimes that simplicity is what makes something good, that it's not over egged or that kind of way. So I think that's one of the key things. What I would say then, obviously what you touched on, Liz, is back then there might have been a gold rush season of like, who can output as many songs and make the books. But since 2019, right, the like monetization of kids' YouTube has been massively impacted. So if anyone who's still on there is on there because they love what they do, not because it's an easy book to make, I would say.
Oh, it's not. It's not. You need to be patient. You need to be really committed and really have a lot of faith that what you're creating is gonna pay off. Like, eventually is going to find an audience. You just have to be consistent and persistent and patient. So a lot of people are also going back to traditional versus YouTube. I think that a lot of people are also used to that. And maybe the fear that you're talking about, Andy, it comes with that, right? Like, okay, so I'm making this for what? What's the end game here, right? When am I gonna get my money back? Or how much is this gonna cost? And what's my ROI? I'm not sure. So I think that's where the fear comes from. And it's well founded. It is true because you don't know. What you know is that, if you have the right idea, if you have the right team, if you are nimble and you have a good distribution strategy, you will succeed. You will find an audience because, along the way, you also need to listen to what those signals, right? Like what the audience is telling you, and be able to change gears and to pivot as many times as needed because the audience it is telling you. So unlike other platforms, Netflix, for example, who they don't give any data. I mean, YouTube gives you a lot of data. I think that it can also be better, but already we have a lot of information that we can gather and we can interpret, right? So there's never gonna be someone, even myself, I would be lying to my teeth to say, oh yeah, I'm an expert. I know exactly what the data means. That's not true. You know, data is interpretation, personal interpretation. How you read it is what matters. And so because the numbers are just there, what you make of the numbers is
Yeah.
really what, it's the difference.
It's like a practice.
Yes,
It's a practice rather than just an expertise or whatever.
exactly.
And obviously Netflix, I talk a lot about the Netflix data that they are, made this kind of unprecedented moves to disclose way more data than any other streaming platform, broadcast platform has ever disclosed before. It's definitely still not YouTube, but even in the depth that it is being delivered, even at that level, we're able to see, key trends coming through and being able to apply those. Obviously, if there was more depth to it and we were able to see things like completion rates or geographies or like any of these things that we know from YouTube, that will be even more glorious. And it does make me think, it kind of pushes Netflix a bit more towards YouTube in that sense that there is at least some disclosure. The other thing I would say just on nursery rhymes is like, which I hadn't necessarily totally appreciated again before I started looking. I could see it in the Netflix data, and we could see it through YouTube data, is that like there's a real local nuance to nursery rhymes. So like a lot of people will just think, hey, Cocomelon is the biggest thing in the world, right? And Cocomelon, and like I can give you 20 different data points to tell you how big Cocomelon is, but it's huge in the English speaking markets, and it's big in other markets, but there's other IP that are there as well. Things like Galina Pintadinha, Lottie Lottie Chicken. There's a lot more local players. El Reino Ventil. I know you're doing work with Plim Plim. So, and particularly that LATAM element, because LATAM audiences bring such a bulk to YouTube. I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit more about that when you have a sec.
Yeah, so definitely. So after, just to go back to your original question, after COPA and COVID and all that, the landscape really changed, right? There was like the RPM went down, everything, a lot of companies closed down. And so it was a very difficult time for a lot of players. But funny enough, for Plim Plim, Smilehood, it's a property of Smilehood. So Plim Plim actually started to grow after that. I'm not sure if it was because there was like less competition, or there was just like an emergence of that kind of content that was basically just also growing. And so today, Plim Plim is number one in Spanish language. And so it's very comparable to Cocomelon in terms of size. Like I was just looking at some reports just in April. Plim Plim was ranked number 8 in the whole platform, all channels, just below Cocomelon. I have the data here. It had 1.98 billion views in a month. And like I said, just behind Cocomelon, and it makes it the first Spanish-speaking channel, because Cocomelon is English, right? So it's
And did you just
huge.
say, for anyone who's listening to this podcast, is like, I did actually see you whip out the physical report and make it. Well, I
Yeah, I
know
had
that's
to like
like
find the number.
yeah.
Yeah. No, data is really everything, right? Sorry, I correct myself. It was 1.28 billion views out of
Okay.
48.9 million creators. So I think that's huge, and that
Wow.
really speaks about the importance of consistency and staying true to the values of the IP. And what has happened with Plim Plim is fascinating. Is they created a song. It's called Abejita Chiquitica, so Little Bee, and it's the most, again, going back to simplicity, is super simple. It's very repetitive, but it's super catchy. So it's almost like, obviously we're not at the size of Baby Shark, but this is kind of like the same phenomenon in Spanish language that is creating. So even, it's kind of like going beyond the screen. Now we see the kids going to the live shows dressed as little bees. And it's funny because Little Bee, it was just on that video. There was no character created for that. So going back to being, organic and nimble, it was just a video about a bee. But the kids really loved the song and connected with the character and connected with the idea behind the video. And now everybody loves bees. And the bee, we see bees everywhere. And it's funny because Plim Plim is the star of the show, right? But now it's we see Plim Plim and we see bees, and it's fantastic. I think it really speaks of the reach that YouTube still has. And going back to, the nuances and the importance of localizing content, that was actually one of the things that saved a lot of creators after Copa. They just started to diversify, so go streaming, go different screens, music distribution, licensing. So you have to find ways, and you have to also dub your content, but not just dub, like actually get familiar with the culture, understand what they want, what they consume, what they connect with, and really deliver, and serve that need. It's always about that. I really love that expression, Joe. Serving the need is key on YouTube, and I think that when you do that, you're highly rewarded. And so that's basically what is happening with Plim Plim. The creators are based in Argentina, Smilehood, the team, and so they understand the Latin American culture perfectly well, and they really deliver on that need. And even the rhythms, the music, everything is something, they connect really at many different levels with the Latin American culture, the Spanish speaking audience. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's becoming so big. It's just really understands the audience, just like Cocomelon understands its English speaking audience. I think it's very important to creators to do that as well, and not just dubbing content, but localizing and really understanding those cultural nuances is really important.
And do you find, obviously, now on YouTube, it being a huge global platform, it is really important to consider audiences that speak lots of different languages. And I mean, it's something now that you would really consider in terms of having a Spanish language channel, or having a channel in Hindi, for example. Do you find that it's bringing native speakers, so say English speakers, and introducing them to Spanish songs and nursery rhymes?
Yes, I think that there's also a big niche in bilingual content. There's some creators that just do that because obviously there is a need. Parents who want to teach English, and that's how Super Simple the song started, by the way. Just English teachers speaking, teaching English to kids, right? So different. I think it was Korean or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So it was, and so yes, there is a big niche, and there's also that kind of, again, the need of the parents to like, oh, in my case, for example, too, my kids are mixed. I'm Spanish speaker, but my husband is English speaker. So, I want to make sure that they understand my native language. So I will, try to look for English, Spanish content to show them. So I think that is definitely a tool. A lot of kids, that's also one of the reasons why English is so important. It's global. It's like everyone wants to, teach English to their kids. It's a universal language in the end, but I think that it goes in different ways too. Like it's the English speakers not only trying to understand, to learn English through the content, but it's the other way around too, right? And actually in the US, we have a big presence of audience that watch our content in Spanish in the US. It's a big percentage of our audience right now for the Spanish channel,
Makes a lot of sense.
language channel.
What I would say, if YouTube it remains a super global platform, and that's just the way you have to kind of approach it. And I know that can get a bit tricky when you're creating content for broadcast at the same time. So we've kind of done that. We're doing this YouTube series is to try to, because it feels like a kind of a very hot moment in the industry about this. It's probably been growing and bubbling under the surface, and maybe not even under the surface for a couple of years. But we are in this kind of moment of, YouTube is the front page of the kids' internet. You need to be on YouTube, and that the reality of that is funding content up front, right? With the promise of potentially getting some upside in the long term, but even that upside is no longer what it was. Definitely not. It's not a golden egg. It's a piece of the pie. It's not even a full pie. Do you know what I mean? Whereas 5 years ago would have been a different situation. Is there anything you can think that would be helpful in terms of like changing the landscape or making the landscape for new kids IP coming up on YouTube a bit fairer and giving a bit more opportunity?
I think that right now, I still believe that YouTube is a great platform for new, IPs. I think it's always evolving. I think also the audience, this type of audience, 1 to 3, especially, it renews constantly, right? That's also the great thing about these channels, that it's constantly getting new viewers, and I think that the need to innovate is still there. I think that a lot of parents are familiar with a lot of channels already, but I feel that the novelty is welcome as well. So I feel that you know absolutely be strategic. Try to look for partnerships. Don't do it alone. I think that there is YouTube's. There's still a lot of growth. I find that it's still a platform. I mean, even now, despite the fact that it's a very competitive, landscape right now, this video, this song "Abejita Chiquitita" is actually reaching 1 billion views very shortly in the next few weeks, and it's only 2 years old. We don't see that. The only time that we see that is with Coco Melon, probably, that has that kind of reach. But from a Spanish language channel is very, very, it's really great to see. It's the first time that it happens. In just 2 years, it reaches that kind of viewership. So you can still see that there is opportunity, right? So I think that if you commit to a good premise, if you find your audience, if you keep delivering good content and be consistent, you will be rewarded, and your audience will follow along. So I think that don't spend too much time in development, just do it, and then you'll see, and be ready to pivot, and be ready to adjust your strategy as well. But because you will, right? So but it's okay, and it's okay, because eventually the you will find you know your fan base that is gonna just not gonna let you go anymore. Be original as well. Try to break the glass. And yeah, I think it's a fantastic platform to creators who just want to really engage and create, engaging content for kids, entertaining, valuable, educational. I think that there's still a lot of opportunity.
That's awesome. It's really hopeful.
And it sounds like your advice to creators, if they were starting out now, to try and create the next big kids IP, would be similar, really, that you don't feel like the environment on YouTube has changed enough that you kind of would advise a different strategy. It would be more be out there and get your content, get your content on YouTube and learn from the audience response?
I always have this saying, you know, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Kids are kids. Kids connect with very specific things. And I think you just need to be observant. I think you need to really analyze the landscape, the competitors. Why are these kids connecting with certain things? And try to be creative. I think that there's opportunity for everyone, I find. And it's I don't know. It is maybe I'm too positive, or but I see it. I see that there's a need for new content as well. So be novel, but don't spend too much time. You're not pitching the show to anyone, right? You don't have to create this Bible or anything, because really it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to just your Bible is going to be your content. You're going to present it in front of your ad audience. And so you just wait and see what they say, and then take the feedback and apply it and improve, and just keep going, keep moving. And I think that's the secret. Keep moving is so important on YouTube. Don't look back. um I'm not proud of a lot of content that I've created, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
The audience is a commissioning editor. I like it.
Yes, exactly. So, and yes, like I said, I'm not proud of a lot of the content I created, but you asked me why. I was like, it is what it is, basically. So move on. Just take the learnings, move on, keep creating, and you will find not everything works on YouTube. We have to be realistic as well. You will spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort creating something that might actually just flop, and that's okay. But eventually, like, one of those will work. And I think just keep that spirit um, going. I think that's just consistency is key, and don't pivot too much either, because sometimes, like I said, just takes time to get there. It doesn't mean that it didn't work. It's just takes a little bit more time.
Awesome. Well, listeners, thank you so much for joining us on the Kids Media Club podcast. And we would also like to thank our sponsor, Precise TV, who are helping us with this YouTube series. All right. Well, Andy, do you want to do the sign off?
Okay, that's a wrap. Huge thanks to Liz for joining us and sharing her insights on the nursery rhyme IP landscape and helping to make some of the catchiest kids IP since Baby Shark or the Wiggles. And hit that like and subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts, and we will catch you next week.